Today I'll be discussing the Pierce Knight build, which is a nostalgic build for many. How did it go from one of the best MVP hunting builds 3 years ago to being irrelevant? Stay tuned as I cover the rise and fall of Pierce Knight. Also, I try MVP hunting with my Pierce Knight with the latest gear to see if there's any hope. If you search for Pierce Knight builds on YouTube, you'll see quite a few builds from 2 to 3 years ago. It's crazy how much damage has increased since then. Back in the day, 5 million damage was a lot. What was the appeal of this build when it first came out? The Pierce skill deals with MVPs very efficiently, since it deals 500% damage and then it hits 3 times for large. The weapon of choice was the halberd, which could deal 70% more damage to large monsters. Then you combine that with 2 Minora's cards, and you have an MVP killing machine. Cavalry Mastery makes it very easy to deal extra damage to large monsters, so activating the Insight effect is very easy if you have 2 Minora's cards. So it was easy to get the 100% ignore defense, which was required back then. This build was truly busted, and I remember people complaining about it back then. It would be one of the best MVP killing classes, but over time its popularity would fall. I'll cover the fall by mentioning a few episodes of interest. In episode 4, it introduced the third job, and that's when you could get the Rune Knight. Enchant Blade and Sink or Swim began to make the edgy crit knight quite amazing. Your damage would start to increase based on your MDef and your magic attack, so this starts to scale very well. Also, for people that heavily invested in their attack, magic attack, attack percentage, and magic attack percentage, they could see a lot of great damage returns. Once episode 5 hit, you would start to need 150% ignore defense for dealing with high board MVPs in NIF. I think this barrier of entry became higher. You really need to be lucky with your morale and chance, as we didn't have the luxury of having so many ignore defense items as we do today. When episode 7 was released, I think this was the nail in the coffin for many MVP hunting classes. That's when we were introduced to the Lightbringer. Even to this day, Lightbringer is one of the best classes for nuking MVPs. It was so much easier to build a Lightbringer compared to many other classes as well. Even refined 10 gear was sufficient to be competitive in MVP hunting. The scaling of the Pioneer and Machine Revolution skill was just too good. Unfortunately, nothing came out to benefit the Pierce Knight, so its damage could never scale, so the Pierce Knight damage really struggled since it couldn't compete with these new job classes. Fast forward to today, the only knights I see are the auto attack kind, and occasionally the magic dragon breath when it comes to PvE. The days of seeing Pierce Knights on the MVP board are long gone. Until today. It's 2022, and I'm going to try building a Pierce Knight with my best gear. For offhand, I use the Dragonbone Shield for the physical damage increase with the Alice Star card. For armor, I use the Truth Expositor for the attack percentage with the Heart card. For garment, I use the Leader's Pauldron for the ignore defense and the skill damage increase, and I use the Mayfair Lens card. For footgear, I use the Dragon Slayer's War Boots for the penetration percentage, and I use the Flute Player Star card. For accessories, I use the Gold Earring for the penetration percentage, and I use the Moonlight Tendrillin card. For the second accessory, I use the same thing, Gold Earring for the penetration percentage and the Moonlight Tendrillin card. For weapon, I'm using the Soul Spear, which is the synthesis of the halberd. Unfortunately, this synthesis weapon just wasn't good enough to save this class build. It would definitely need more modifiers to pierce in order to do more damage. For a card, I use the Desert Wolf card and the Minora's Star card. I use these two cards to activate the double insight for both cards, so I get 50% ignore defense from the Desert Wolf card and 50% ignore defense from the Minora's card, which was deposited in my handbook. This is a neat trick to get very high ignore defense if you lack morale and chance. This only works because I have the head item Abyssal Cry, which gives 10% damage to large monsters. For face, I use the Winter Crown for skill damage. For mouth I use Huge Bounty for MVP damage. For back I use the Haunted Candlestick for the skill damage. For tail I use the Rock Bunny for damage to MVPs. For relic I use the waist size for more attack. Next for Oracle Mirror I use the Bill for damage to MVP monsters. For advanced runes, here is my setup. The important one is the Gale Thorn for 29% damage to large monsters. Next Anger Reflux rune for better frenzy. Next I use the Darkness Awakening Star rune for Death Awakening buffs. Next I use the Death Cage Star for Asphyxia to give me HP recovery. Next I use the Dark Dragon Flame Star rune for more Magic Dragon Breath damage just in case I need some AoE. Finally I use the Swift Riding rune for more move speed. Next here are my attributes. I max Strength and Vitality and then the rest is an int. Here are my stats with self buffs. I have 25,000 attack. I have 168.1% move speed, which is quite low compared to Novice Guardians and Lightbringers. This also gives them a big disadvantage when trying to MVP hunt since they're not as fast as these meta classes. Here are the attributes. I have lots of strength and vitality. For penetration, I have 73.5%. For skill damage increase, I have 23%. For damage, I have 118.4%. For physical damage increase, I have 112.9%. I have 156.5% ignore defense. I'm going to scroll all the way down so you can see the size damage increase. I deal 55% against small and 55% against large, which is how I activate the insight effect for both cards that are deposited in my handbook. Next is my Avenger Handbook. I have 2,380 attack and 48% attack deposits. Next, here's my skill setup. Here are my swordsman skills. Here are my knight skills. Here are my Lord Knight skills. And here are my Rune Knight skills. For auto attack, I use Pierce and Prepare for Elite. Inside of Prepare for Elite, I have Endure, Concentrate, and Lord's Aura. Now, let's hunt. Let's begin by hunting for Owl Baron. I'm very lucky that it spawns next to me. It does pain me to not be able to one-shot this, and I only hit it for 12 million damage. Next, I go for the Orc Lord. And for this one, I'm able to one-shot it for 32 million damage. Next, I go for the Orc Hero. I had a bit of server lag here, but I do one-shot it. Next, I'll try a tougher MVP with Cautelux. I hit it and the damage keeps going up due to the skill Deep Cut, where subsequent damage will increase up to 5 times. It wasn't bad to kill a decent MVP here, so I was quite happy with the results. For that boss, I did have to switch to my face item Epic Spirit Lightning in order to deal a lot of wind damage. I am using elemental converters when I use Pierce, so I can do double damage to certain monsters. Now I'm going to look for Dark Lord. For my C viewers, they might be wondering, hey, it's 3 minutes in and there's still MVPs around? Well, welcome to Global. There are some channels that are dominated by a few people and they can't be everywhere at once. Again, the Pierce can one-shot it. Next I go for Baphomet. I was hoping people would see my troll outfit, where I'm wearing the old Lord Knight outfit, plus the Devil Wings, the Orc Hero helm, and the Malacross tail. This is what a Lord Knight might have looked 3 years ago, so I decided to go with that. But sadly, no one has seen me so far. I finally find it and I hit it for about 12 million. Sadly, the damage is not high enough to one-shot it and it tries to run away when teleporting. When you're used to one-shotting these bosses and suddenly you can't, it's extremely painful. I can feel the pain deep in my soul. Next, I hunt for Bloody Knight. Playing this does make me feel nostalgic. I had multi-class to Pierce Knight for a bit after finding Ranger lacked the burst damage for MVP hunting. I've seen some solo hunters these days use the Meteor Pulse build for some burst, however I find it's quite expensive to build and I would rather just build something like a Lightbringer which is more consistent for nuking. I finally found it, and I used Death Awakening this time. Unfortunately I still couldn't one-shot it and it takes 2 shots. On my way to the next MVP, I passed by a fellow MVP hunter. I wonder if they know I'm a Pierce Knight. Next I deal with Mistress. It's not large, so I switched to the Magic Dragon Breath to deal with it. So a pretty good run overall, but the damage was a bit underwhelming for me, especially when I'm used to using the Novice Guardian, which has insane damage scaling. It was a fun experiment, and I hope you could relive your Pierce Knight days from watching this video. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe.